Welcome to the Fitnatics. I'm super excited. I'm here with Sarah Rivera, licensed professional counselor from Luz Counseling. Welcome, Sarah. How are you today?
I am so good. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. And I wanted to just get into this, okay? This is a
Mhm.
huge topic that comes across a lot with my clients, my group coaching clients, my individuals, and it's this mental health. Mental health.
Mhm.
So tell me, define mental health, please.
Yeah, simply, it's just the overall soundness of your mental, psychological, and emotional well being. I know that's a lot of really big and fancy words, but it's just like physical health and wellness, how much attention you're giving to it, overall, what people kind of notice in you as well, and just genuine focus on you being a better version of yourself on the emotional and mental level.
Excellent. Good, good. I like that. Very clear and concise.
Mhm.
And it's just basically just an overall, not just of the physical, but of the mental status of how you're feeling. Got it.
That's
Got it.
exactly right.
Now, given that definition, tell me in your practice, what are you seeing? Any specific concerns or issues that you're seeing more and more of here recently?
Susie, that is actually a really good question because it's one that we're still not really sure to navigate with this whole COVID thing, right? We
Hmm.
just went through a global or going through a global pandemic, and one that we unfortunately don't have any pre-existing data or research or evidence because the last really, really bad thing to happen was a long time ago, a really, really, really long time ago. And so what we're coming to find now with just an kind of more awareness with the mental health field is tracking what it looks like and how this affects people. So, more than anything, one of the things that we are seeing is a rise of anxiety or anxious type symptoms and depression, depressive like symptoms, and social apprehensions. So, the hard time kind of
Mm-hmm.
going back out there, in there, and feeling completely safe physically for obvious reasons, but also kind of emotionally, there's a lack of confidence that we're seeing, even for people that haven't struggled with that before. Isn't that something?
Oh, very interesting.
Mhm.
And I have noticed that in some of my clients who prior to COVID, very confident, very socially active,
Right.
and since have had a little bit of a change in their mindset and their emotions.
Mhm.
Tell me or give me some symptoms of anxiety.
Yeah. So if somebody was feeling anxious like symptoms, one of the quickest way that they can tell or detect it is from the inside. So there's something that happens to their heart rate. For example, a lot of people will say, my heart starts beating really fast or a rapid heart rate, very different than their just kind of resting or typical heart rate. A lot of people will say that they have a lot of racing or uncontrollable thoughts. So these thoughts rarely ever exist in the current time and space. Anxiety is one of those mental health conditions that literally exists somewhere in the past or in the future. So when people are thinking about things that make them anxious, most of the time it's not even occurring right now. They're having
Hmm.
thoughts about something that went badly, could go badly, did go badly in the past, or a fear or a preoccupation of something that's happening in the future. So they're living and thinking outside of current time and space. Isn't that crazy? So
Wow.
anxiety alongside PTSD, ironically, are one of the two mental health conditions that live outside of current time. So the
Interesting.
racing and uncontrollable thoughts, elevated heart rate. A lot of people will say
Mhm.
that they feel kind of clammy, sometimes really cold, but a little on the sweaty side, which is really
Mhm.
interesting. So there's different sympathetic nervous response system type things that
Mhm.
kick in. And so
Mhm.
with anxiety, we see a dysregulation there.
I see.
Mhm.
Does that anxiety typically last for a certain period of time, minutes, hours, days?
Right. And that really varies by individual. A lot of people will say, this panic attack, this anxiety attack. You maybe have even met somebody, some people watching may say, I've experienced that myself. We'll see that that anxiety attack was something that lasted for minutes, felt like hours, but normally it's about that time. Now, then there's kind of incessant episodes of anxiety. So it kind of hits hard and fast and then will stop or decrease and then hit hard and fast. and then stop or decrease. So it would be highly unusual for somebody to experience all of these anxious symptoms for hours and hours and hours or days and days on end. If that is the case, then there might be an underlying factor, and getting some additional medical support is going to be super important to triage that. But with anxious feelings and anxiety, it's a mental affliction that causes then some physical manifestation. So we kind of need to make sure that if there's a lot of physical stuff going on, there's not a physical issue going on.
Give me an example, sir. Well said, and very good information. Give me an example of a time or a situation where the physical would be causing some of that in relation to the mental.
An ulcer,
Okay.
bowel issues, things like that. So there's something internal that really needs to be regulated, a migraine. There's something physical that's kind of making your entire internal system not balanced and not right. So there's a preoccupation of, oh my God, something inside of me isn't quite right. And the truth is, something inside of you isn't quite right.
Got it. Got it. Would sleep deprivation, loss of sleep, would that fall in line with that physical, not quite aligning with the mental, or having that impact, should
Absolutely.
I say?
Yeah. When your basic level needs aren't taken care of, everything inside of you physically and emotionally will be off kilter. And basic level needs are things related to sleep, eating patterns, and breathing. People are like, breathing. So those things, right? Without any one of those things, a person dies. At some point, if you are just awake, 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 no sleep, that person, they will die. Same with food. And then the same with breathing. And so any disruption of those basic level needs will absolutely cause a disruption internally, physically, and emotionally, psychologically, and mentally. Mhm.
So, okay, that was more specifically the anxiety. Tell
Mhm.
me, how is that different from depression? How will someone be able to determine whether they have anxiety or they are just depressed, or can you be both?
Yeah, you can definitely be both. And I would always tell people, don't try and self-diagnose. So
Okay.
Google is our friend, but they are not a doctor. And so a lot
Yes.
of times people will read lots of different books and articles and blogs and such things, which is really helpful in attempt to self-diagnose. A mental health condition like anxiety or depression is best left up to a professional, a mental health professional. So, the very same way that you wouldn't diagnose yourself with some type of physical condition, you would leave that up to the
Mhm.
doctor. It's really important to leave that up to the mental health professional.
Yeah.
And so, with something like depression, we really see a disorganization of what we were talking about earlier, a disruption of sleep, either
Okay.
sleeping not enough or too much, a disruption of eating patterns, either eating too much or not enough. And
Mhm.
some of the other things that people will notice around you, our loved ones, will usually notice that that person has become withdrawn, they're a bit isolated, feelings of helplessness or hopelessness. So when you think about the
Mhm.
future, it's not feeling too hot. So
Mhm.
those are some of the examples or symptoms that we see with depression.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this, Sarah. When do you know
Mhm.
it's time to seek that professional help? Because I would imagine, some individuals feel like, oh, it's going to go away. I'm fine. It just happened once or twice, or I just had, a couple of bad nights of sleep. When do you suggest, as a professional, is the time to seek help? And I'm gonna
Mhm.
ask you something else in addition to that. As an outsider, say you're a spouse or you're, a parent, and you see some of those signs, how do you address that or bring that to the table and have that type of a conversation?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, the sooner the better. I once had somebody ask, we're going through a really difficult death in the
Mhm.
family. And I really think that my family needs help. How quickly do you think that we should get in for an appointment? And I said, is it possible for after the funeral for you to come? So the sooner the better. If you're thinking that you might need some extra help, chances are you do.
Got it.
Another thing is relying on our social support system. So a person that we love. Usually, the people that we love are able to notice earlier than anybody else that we need help. So their
Mhm.
observation is really helpful as long as you can trust that it's coming from a place of love, which brings me to your second question, is coming from a place of love, genuine care, and saying, I've been noticing some of these things. I care about you, I love you, and I want to know how best to help you. My fear is
Mm.
that you may not know how best to help you. I'm not a professional, but I would be more than happy to go with you, to drive you there, to help facilitate finding a professional because I think there can be help out there and I want to do it alongside with you. So, coming again from a place of just genuine care and love
Mhm.
and softening your voice, very much like I did a second ago, can really help
Mhm.
with delivery. Mhm.
Oh, that's wonderful information. I know very valuable because I understand that, being that type of a situation, especially with a close friend or loved one, we get uncomfortable in how, we don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So, having those tools or that tip that you just shared, invaluable because we do see when we're closest to those loved ones, we do notice those changes. We are the ones that are closest to them. So we have the
Yeah,
ability to see if there's any changes in their demeanor, their
right.
dialogue, their behaviors. So
Mhm.
very good to know. Now,
Yeah,
Sarah, let me
and
ask you, go ahead.
if I can add something there too, I actually wrote a blog about this on the luzcounseling.com website, and it's how to help a loved one struggling with anxiety. Because while it's really important to come in and say, I want to support you, the other thing that I need to make mention of is not to enable. So the enabling behavior can sometimes come in and say, I'll do it. I'll find your counselor. I'll call and try and set up an appointment. I'll fill out your paperwork. I'll let me do it because there's a point of desperation where that person who loves the person going through this mental health condition just wants them to experience a change and quite frankly feel a change in their own environment, that there becomes sometimes an enabling effect by trying to do for that person rather than them doing it
Mhm.
for themselves.
So what I'm hearing is there's a very fine line. There's
Super
a
fine line.
fine
Yeah,
line. Okay.
very fine
Okay.
line.
Got it. Very, very similar, in terms of my profession and my field. When
Mm,
someone wants to make changes in their physical health and, you know, doing everything for them, all of that is
right,
not really the best philosophy or technique, rather than it be teamwork, ensuring that they're both we're all on the same page, working
right.
toward the same goal. Okay,
Collaborative. Exactly. Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Sarah, tell us a few tips or suggestions or resources that individuals can use if they are feeling some of this, anxiety or depression.
Yeah, so sometimes the tips can be a little bit different for each, but one of the best ways to regulate some of those internal symptoms that we were talking about with anxiety is deep breathing techniques. And I was watching one of your episodes, Susie, and you had, I want to say, like a holistic individual who was also getting some counseling experience not too long ago, and she mentioned some of this deep breathing. That's exactly right. So, this is helpful not just physically, but also emotionally. So, this deep breathing is so much more than just taking in a deep breath, but there's an actual kind of practice and science to it. And it requires you to do it more than a handful of times for it to be effective. It's also called belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, if you want to know any fancy words there. But it's always best, like if you want to say, like, how do you do that exactly? I actually have another blog written about that on my website. And diaphragmatic breathing, I would recommend. That's something definitely that you can Google, and something good will come out of that. And you could actually use that. So deep breathing is a really, really
Okay.
good one that I like. One of the
Mhm.
other big ones is going to be engaging with the social support system. So, in terms of depression, there has to be somebody who says, I need to kind of break out of my isolation and withdrawal, and I do need people. That's going to be the biggest admission that you can go through when you're
Mhm.
struggling with depression, is a recognition that by being by yourself, it's not good. Like something about being by yourself is not good. And so human
Mhm.
connection is going to be huge, whether that's a family member, a significant other, somebody that maybe you haven't connected with in a while. But social interaction is huge because depression
Mhm.
is so isolating, not just emotionally, but oftentimes like environmentally very isolating. So that's going to be a really big one. Another one that I really is, like I mentioned earlier with anxiety, is that it's a constant preoccupation, worry, or concern about something that could happen in the future
Hmm.
or has maybe happened in the past. And so we're living outside of the present. So what we have to do is we have to kind of engage ourselves with what's happening in the present. So for example, if right now I was feeling really anxious about what? Like honestly, like me and you are just chilling, we're talking, like you're a safe person, I'm in a safe place, I'm at home, if anybody was wondering,
Hmm.
like I'm in a good space. Right
Hmm.
now, there is nothing to be anxious about. Nothing. But if I'm thinking about something else, I could feel anxious. So to kind of reorient and ground yourself to this moment in time, it's called
Hmm.
mindfulness. And there's a really, really neat way of doing that that I really love. And it's by using your senses. So you know that we have five, arguably, we're supported, seven. And so using those senses to kind of come into this moment. And it's something that I like to call the 3-2-1 strategy. And that
Okay.
3-2-1 is the use of three different senses. So in this case, we're going to use the visual sense, the tactile sense, and the auditory sense. So, on the
Oh,
visual
okay.
sense, it's things that we can see. So, name three things that you can see, and you can kind of name it. So, for example, I would say
Hmm.
white table, blue couch, and white light. That's three
Hmm.
things that I can see with my eyes. Then
Got
there's
it.
two things that you can touch or feel with your hands or your fingers. So I can
Okay.
touch my hair and that feels a certain way versus touching my sleeve and that feels a different way. And then, of
Hmm.
course, there's that last one, the one. What can I hear? Believe it or not, I can hear kind of a slight thing through my earphone on the computer. And so my mind is channeled to focus on the present by use of the body. Because mind and the body, they are really good friends. It doesn't always feel
Yeah.
that way, right? But they can be
Mhm.
really great allies. So you have to use your mind and your body to come together to bring you back to this moment. That's mindfulness and one of the best ways to combat anxious thoughts.
Oh, Sarah, that's fantastic. Tools and resources. And we do talk about that in terms of the mindfulness and the breathing, because just as you're saying, with regards to the mindset, when we're working on our bodies, whether we're
Right.
trying to lose weight or we're trying to get stronger or more flexible, we need to be in tune with our mind. We need to listen to the mindset. If it's telling us, don't make that move right now,
Right.
your body's not prepared for that, and in essence react to that. And the
Mhm.
more in tune we can be with our body, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we're at a better chance to know if something's a little off, a little off kilter.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the same we do in counseling is we actually bring attention to the body. And so it's a beautiful complementary relationship if you think about it. It's not like the mind and the heart are somewhere over there, the body somewhere over there, although it can feel very disjointed. It's really important to bring the mind and the heart and the body to kind of overlap with one another and kind of be functioning as partners or a trio in this case.
Exactly, exactly. Now tell us, Sarah, who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is somebody who's willing to work.
Ah, well said.
Now, with it, when it comes to mental health, it's kind of like physical health. You can't work out, you can't eat better for them.
Mhm.
They have to do it, right? Your client has to do it. It's the same in
Absolutely.
counseling that a lot of times people come in and they want us to do the fixing. How long will this take? Is a question that we hear a lot. It's like, well, however long it takes for you to do what you need to do. So, somebody who
Mhm.
just simply has a willing heart and is willing to apply some of the strategies and homework that we talk about in counseling, that would be ideal.
Excellent. Excellent. Same here on my end. What my clients do when they're away from me is way more important and more
Mhm.
effective than when they do when they're sitting right in front of me. So
That's exactly right.
that work needs to be done when I'm not around.
Exactly, exactly. One of the analogies that I always use is when you go visit a dentist, you don't just brush your teeth on the day that you go visit the dentist. Like, how bad would that be, right? So you have to be brushing your teeth and flossing. Flossing is very important, right? But every single day, multiple times a day, so
Yes.
that when you get to the dentist, they're like, "Yeah, you're on the right track. Let's do this now." It's
Yes,
kind of the
yes.
same as that there needs to be some application of the work that we talk about daily
Mhm.
a lot of times so that you can achieve the best results. Mhm.
Good. Once someone reaches out to your business, La Luz Counseling, what do you guys provide counseling virtually, in person? Is it group counseling, individual? Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, so when you call the office, you'll always talk to a person, never a robot. And we do guarantee a response within just a few hours if a message is left. And in that, we do offer individual and family based counseling services. And this is for in person or virtual, whatever the client is more comfortable with. So we offer a hybrid approach. And if you want a little bit of both, that's okay too. Now, we do treat kiddos as young as 4 years old, all the way on up. Somebody who might be struggling with anything tough. What I say is, anybody who's going through something tough, this is a good place for you to be. Now, if for some reason we're not able to help for whatever reason, the hours, the location, the situation is maybe something outside of our specialty arena, we will give you something in your hands, a referral. So we're not just going to leave you empty handed and say, good luck. That sounds really sucky. No, we're going to
Yeah.
say, how can we help? This is what you need. This person is really close to you. This person takes your insurance because we don't
Mhm,
take insurance.
mhm.
If you say, no, I really wanted couples counseling, I would say that that's not our specialty, but these guys are really good. So the
There you
person who
go.
calls can always expect to be left with something, even if we're not signing them up for an appointment within our office.
Excellent. Good. Very good information. Now, Sarah, let me ask you this. How do you manage your stress?
One of my favorite things to do and something that I've been doing since I was a little girl was reading. I actually am an avid reader. I love reading and also doing puzzles, both of which just kind of demand my mental attention and just kind of, gentle ways for me. Nobody else in my family likes to do those things. So I'll try and coerce them to say, you want to do a puzzle with me? And they're like, I'll sit with you. Right. But those are my two go tos, especially when I want to
Excellent.
decompress from kind of a tougher day.
Gotcha, gotcha. I like that.
Mhm.
I might look into some puzzles. I've never
They're
done that.
so
Other
fun,
than when I
so
was
fun.
young. I was all
Yeah,
about puzzles and reading. Definitely love reading. I used to get books for, birthday gifts. I mean, that's how much I love
yeah.
reading.
Well, there you go, right? So it's just
Yeah.
about kind of getting in touch with some of the things that have worked before in the past. Both of those things, like I said, I did when I was a child, stopped doing for a while, and then I realized
Yeah.
I really like it. So I would
Makes
definitely
sense.
encourage people, like, if you used to like it back then, chances are you still do now.
Yeah. All right, Sarah. Now let me ask you, are you a fit addict? Do you like to work out? And if so, what's your favorite type of workout?
I like to walk.
Ah,
I'm an avid walker. My husband is an avid runner, and I think that
oh,
that's awesome. But I am not quite that type. What I really like to do is dance. So if you give me like a Zumba class or something, I'm all about that life. Versus if you tell me, hey, go outside and run for 15 minutes, I would say, can I do a Zumba class for an hour instead? So I would much rather dance. Like I said, walking is kind of my default. Again, something that I like to do in a slower pace because sometimes I feel like my life is so fast paced.
got
So
it.
those are some of the things that I like to do.
Awesome, Sarah. Well, I definitely want to thank you so much for your time and very valuable information. And I want to encourage anyone who's interested in seeking some professional counseling to look to La Luz Counseling and reach out. And as you've heard, you're going to get the utmost high level quality services that you can get anywhere, anytime. Thank you, Sarah.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, Susie.